Welcome back to One on One. I'm Merrick Rhodes, joined by Chris Carrino, and we have the pleasure of being joined by a Fordham baseball alum, Rob Semerano, drafted in the 20th round by the Oakland A's before spending some time in the Yankees and the Astros system, and now at age 40, looking to make his MLB comeback, throwing the ball harder than ever. Rob, big thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. And I think I want to start it off because I was very interested by your story, obviously. And I'm interested, obviously, there's the famous Jim Morris story, and he had his bet with his students as to his return to the MLB. So I was kind of wondering, first off, if there was anything that led you in particular to making your MLB comeback, and also how this experience has kind of been different than your original experience getting to the MLB through the more traditional route of college baseball and that. So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that even when my career ended in 2009 with the Astros, I still pursued pitching and training like a pro ball player just because I love doing it. And I ended up having to get Tommy John surgery in 2009. So it took me a little while to come back from that, obviously, and it even took a couple more years to kind of get my velocity back up again. And in the meantime, I own a baseball academy. So just to keep developing myself as an instructor and to keep learning. Just kept experimenting with different ways to generate more velocity, whether it be biomechanics, whether it be power output, whatever it might be. And I started noticing, I would use myself basically as the testing ground and see if it worked. And if I found that it worked for me as, now 42 years old, I knew that if I did it with a young player who was quote unquote in their prime, that it would definitely work for them. And worked through a lot of things that didn't work out, and then also found some things that really helped me. And I think that's probably what's different also from when I was in college is I was a young guy, athletic, strong, and just gifted with a strong arm. Where as I got older, I started to really learn the biomechanics more, learn how to train better, and really learn the importance of recovery as well. That I was always a very hard worker, but sometimes maybe too much so, and never allowed my body to recover the way that I do now, which allows me to perform at a higher level.
Yeah, and Rob, kind of when you cast your mind back, you were obviously drafted by Billy Beane, kind of in the heart of the Moneyball era down in Oakland. When you
Yep.
kind of think about baseball in 2004, and then you kind of think of the game in its modern state today, from the pitcher's perspective specifically, do you find the game to be easier or harder, or do you find it to have advantages or disadvantages? What do you see as a difference kind of in the game from 2004?
So one of the big differences was when I was playing, that's just when the sabermetrics was really starting, and the use of a lot of stats, and there was a big push towards pitch mix and making sure that you had a certain percentage of fastballs and changeups and curveballs, and it was almost like trying to keep them, I don't want to say equal, but you know um, at certain percentages for everybody. And I, at the time, threw the ball very hard and threw a high percentage of fastballs. And, one of the things they were trying to get me to do was throw more breaking balls and, mix that in more. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm blowing the guys away with fastballs. Why don't I stick with that?
Yeah.
And during that time, it was very much, no, but you need to throw a higher percentage of breaking balls. And I think today is more, if you're blowing guys away with fastballs, keep throwing fastballs.
Yeah.
If they can't touch your curveball, then keep throwing curveballs. I mean, I think it was Lance McCullers Jr. a few years back that threw like 23 curveballs in a row. But
Yeah.
that's what it takes to took that day for him to get guys out. And I think I like that mentality that, go with what's going to get guys out. And what's going to get guys out for me as a guy that throws, mid to upper 90s is going to be different than a guy that is a lefty that throws 88 and and maybe has a better curveball than I do. So I do like that about the game today, that the hitting approach has also changed quite a bit from when I played. As you can see, the batting averages are down quite a bit from when I had played, but the power numbers are up. So there's a different type of strategy to facing hitters that are going up with a mentality of driving the ball out of the ballpark versus guys looking to hit a ball to the gap.
Yeah, you mentioned before a little bit about getting your mechanics a little bit different and getting up to 100. I know a lot of guys when it comes to upping their velocity, it all has to do with mechanics and an addition of weight and muscle and a little bit of change in balance. So I was wondering if there's one thing overall that really has helped you in upping your velocity, or if it was just kind of a combination of a number of things. And because that's obviously something that really stood out in doing all the research is that you're 42 years old throwing 100. I mean, only a handful of guys can ever say that, you know? So I was just kind of
Sure.
curious how we got to that point.
Yeah. I mean, it really, we'd have to have a longer interview than this for me to go through everything that I do, because as I say all the time, it's everything. It's diet, it's your training, it's your recovery. You have to build a base of stability and strength first, so that you can generate power off of that base. It's also biomechanics, as you said. It's the ability to know how to use your body the right way, so that you can generate that power. And the big thing for me is in 2015, my dad and my dad is my pitching coach, we went out to USC to work with Tom House. And the big thing he had worked on with me was creating more torque, which is hip and shoulder separation. This past year, I've been working with a physicist named Dr. Mueller, and he was teaching me about the neutral wrist and how to apply that to the pitching delivery. My dad's worked with me on, getting more drive off the mound, being able to get more extension towards home plate. And then, of course, my trainer, Dave Nagaki, and just a lot of people, my chiropractor, Derek Van Benthuizen, making sure that my body's, always in alignment, and just the ART work that he does on me. It's really a combination of a lot of things. And really, if I could put it in a nutshell, it would probably be that if you really want to excel at the highest level of being able to throw a ball as hard as you can, you have to make it part of your lifestyle.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I was gonna follow you up on that. Just the intricate details of that are just so interesting, just how many moving parts it is. And kind of when you cast your mind a little bit less intricate and more just kind of in the broad sense of the younger generation. I mean, I watched your power arm program on YouTube and I kind of saw what you were doing there, but if there was just like one kind of mechanic just in a simple form that you could just teach kids or tell kids that just want to pump more gas like you do, what would it be?
I would say the use of the kinetic chain, which is
Okay.
basically generating power from the ground up through your legs. So basically, the ground is where we get our force from. The more force we can push into the ground, the more power we're going to generate with our legs, and then transfer through our core, and then ultimately deliver with our hand. And really, at the last part, your fingertips. And I think a lot of people forget about the importance of strong hand and strong fingertips to really be able to deliver all that power that's being sent to it.
Yeah, I mean, Chris mentioned it and you mentioned it before, but your work with the youth baseball is awesome. And I know in the CBS piece that I was watching where they mentioned you mentioned that in this return to the MLB, you want to be an inspiration to others. So what has it been like on that kind of smaller scale where you're just kind of helping out the youth of baseball? What is it like being an inspiration to them and inspiring the next generation? And have they inspired you at all with their view on baseball at such a young age?
Yeah, actually, to start with that, with how they've inspired me, I find that the game is kind of at a point where I don't think I've ever seen people more excited about baseball than they are today. So
Definitely.
seeing kids come in with such excitement for the game definitely motivates me, helps keep me young. I've also had players come in that have watched things on YouTube or attended seminars, and they've learned this or that, and I hear that, and maybe they don't have a good grasp on what they learned, but I understand what they're talking about, and I say, boy, that's actually a really good tip, and I will take it for myself and use it for myself. And I think part of what happens, I think a lot of times with most people, is as they get older, they get a little bit more set in their ways, that okay, this is what I'm going with, and I really don't want to learn anything else. This is what I'm gonna do no matter what. And I think one of the things that's helped keep me young is I'm always looking for something new to try out. And so when players come in and they say, hey, I was learning about torsion, or I was learning about, bracing the front side, and this instructor was saying to do this, I like to listen to it, because I think you could possibly learn from everyone. I'm not going to say you can learn from everyone, because some of this stuff is garbage, but there is a lot of good stuff out there, and you have to be at least open to listening to all of it, and then have to be wise enough to know what you're going to actually follow. And I think that's where they've inspired me. Where I think I inspire them, and where I hope to inspire them, is that, I haven't had the smooth path in my baseball career. And I'm not just talking about in pro baseball and over these past, 14 years since I've been out of the game to still doing what I do. But even prior to that, I was very undersized as a little kid. So it was always I don't want to say a struggle, but it was a challenge for me to compete with players that were just naturally bigger and stronger than me. So what it forced me to have to do was hone in on my skills and really perfect them, just to be able to compete with those bigger, stronger kids. And and it allowed me to do things that helped me later on in my career by building that work ethic. And I as a seventh grader, I made our high school JV baseball team, and I was a small seventh grader. I was 4'11" and 92 pounds, and I was pitching against ninth, 10th, and 11th graders. And if you're going to do that, you better be pretty good. And I certainly wasn't doing it by blowing guys away, but I was able to do it by starting with having real good mechanics, good body control, so that I could put the ball where I wanted, and changing speeds and knowing how to pitch. And I'm able to share that with players, so that I could tell them, hey, when I was in eighth grade going into ninth grade that summer, I was clocked at 69 miles an hour. And I got kids with me, they're throwing 78 miles an hour at that same point. So they're like, whoa, I'm way ahead of you. And I say, but fast forward ahead, that was 1996. Fast forward ahead to 2006, I got clocked at 99 miles an hour. So over that 10-year span, I went up 30 miles an hour. And then the next 17 years, I got up to 101. So, the constant is, you hit a lot of valleys along the way that can be tough. And if you keep working through them, if you keep, figuring out ways to bounce back, keep getting up, you're going to give yourself the best shot to maximize whatever potential you have as an athlete, or really anything in life.
Yeah. Actually, speaking on that, speaking on playing up, I was reading an article, and it said that in your sophomore year of high school, your dad brought you up to Poughkeepsie to play in a over 30 men's league, and in your first at bat, you hit a homer. So
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that, because I can't imagine how intimidating that is as a sophomore in high school, going to a
Yeah, it was
game where
pretty.
a bunch of adults.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was the same night, if you could remember back to, I mean, you probably weren't even born when this happened, but it was the night that Tino Martinez got drilled by Armando Benitez, and there was a huge bench clearing brawl with the Yankees and Orioles. And I just always remember that was the night that's how much of an impact that night had on me. I remember what happened that night with the Yankee game. But yeah, my dad was noticing that I was having a lot of success playing against kids my own age, and said, I want to put you somewhere where you're going to fail and struggle and have to work, so that now you take your game to the next level. So he said, you're going to join my men's team, which was, there's some ex-pros in the league. There were guys in their 20s. And so I went to the game. I didn't start. My dad was actually pitching that night. He pitched, still throwing the ball in the low 90s at the time. I mean, he threw 93 up into the age of 40 years old. So anyway, he comes out of the game, and the manager says, all right, Rob, you're going to pinch hit for your dad. So I went up there, and the first thought I had when I stood in the box is, wow, this guy's got a goatee. Like I don't think I'd ever faced anybody with legit facial hair before. It was like, this is a man that I'm facing right now. And I don't know if it was the first pitch or not, but it was pretty early in the at bat. He threw me a fastball, and I turned on it and hit it in the trees in left field. So, it kind of hurt my dad's plans of, putting me in a league to fail.
Yeah,
And I think I ended up batting about 714 in that league. So I did pretty well.
that's
But,
awesome.
but,
Yeah.
I think kind of like the other day when, you know, I've always done better when the chips are down and there's pressure. And I think a lot of that has to go back to my faith. I really turn to God a lot in those moments, especially I think as we all do, right? Sometimes in those moments where things are easy, we can very easily say, okay, I got this, but in those tough moments, you really need to lean on your faith, and it tests it. And I think it helps you dig down for something deeper. And I think that's where, I was hoping for 99 the other day when I was throwing in front of CBS, and it hit 101 in front of them was just,
Awesome.
incredible. But I could feel that I felt like I was in that same zone that I was in the night that you're referring to when I played on my dad's team. That, oh crap, there's a certain amount of when you go into situations like that. I always say this to players, and this is something I also hope to impress upon them, is there's a certain amount of terror that you have, that it's like, wow, this is, like, what could happen here, and there's that gap between knowing what you want to do and doing it, and you got to close that gap, and that takes a lot of faith, it takes a lot of focus. And the best way to strengthen that is to put yourself in situations where you have to strengthen it. I heard one time a quote, and I may be misquoting it a bit, but it was something to the effect of, pick out a dream that's so big that that you only were able to accomplish it because God was there helping you through it.
Yeah.
That's that that the only way you were able to do that is by the grace and help of God. And I think that's important to pass along to players, because they're going to face ups and downs. And I think today versus when I was a kid, the only reporting on games when you were 11 and 12 years old was, if you had a good game, you maybe got your name in the paper and it said, Rob Semerano went 2 for 3, but you didn't see the kid that went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. Today, anybody in the world can see it with some of these things. People can go on Game Changer, people can go online. Everything is so public. A kid goes and slips and falls during a game and makes an idiot of himself. Somebody has a phone there videoing it, and now he's a baseball fail on YouTube.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things out there that can be very tough on young players, but you can get through it. And I think that's the message, that hey, I've been through some pretty tough stuff. A couple of years ago, I had my wife walk out on me just out of the blue, and left our family and no notice or anything. And that's a very tough thing to deal with. But I wanted to show my boys that, what, I'm going to take this tough moment and turn it into a positive. And that's really a couple of years ago when I really started kicking it into another gear, and found that throwing the baseball was actually very therapeutic for me. And and I think it showed my boys that, hey, we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through this better than ever. Actually, we're going to use this as fuel. And I'm not the only one that has to deal with things like that. We all have dealt with different things like that. And and whether it's somebody dealing with anxiety or depression, or whatever it might be, everybody's got their cross to bear and has some tough times in life that they have to work through. And with faith and with just the perseverance to keep moving forward, and not only that, but use that moment, like I said, as fuel. I mean, it really can fuel you to give you a little extra push to be even that much more driven to do whatever it is that you want to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think I speak for everybody at WFUV Sports when I tell you that you are a huge inspiration to all of us with the work you've done with your with the kids, and the work you're doing to get back to the MLB. It helps. It's an inspiration to not only baseball players, but also anybody on a journey to accomplish their dream, that that it's never over. So huge thank you, Rob, for joining us. It's been great getting to talk to you. And of course, you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Anytime. I'd love to come back and do one at Rose Hill sometime.
Of
Love
course,
visiting
of course.
there.
All right, well,
All right.
we'll be back with more one-on-one.